Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Salma Avdic with the American Marketing Association, and I will be your moderator for today's webcast, which is in partnership with Mintent, entitled Know Your Persona's Entire Buying Experience to Unlock Marketing ROI. So I just wanted to cover a few important housekeeping items before we officially get started. Our webcast is being recorded today and will be made available to you later on this afternoon on ama.org. We also invite you to continue this and join this conversation on Twitter, and you can do so by adding or searching for #Mintent when tweeting about this webcast. And if at any point today you have any technical or content-related questions, please feel free to ask them at any time. You can use our chat box, which is located on the left-hand side of your screen. All right, so with that, I'm very pleased to introduce our two speakers that we have with us today. So we have Adele Revella, and she is the CEO and founder of Buyer Persona Institute, as well as the author of Buyer Personas, How to Gain Insight into Your Customers' Expectations, Align Your Marketing Strategies, and Win More Business. And her book was named a top 5 business book by Fortune magazine. Adele is also widely recognized as a marketing and business leadership speaker, consultant, blogger, and workshop facilitator. So we are very pleased to have her with us today, as well as Matt Dion, who is the CEO of Mintent. And Matt has a career spanning 25-plus years and is considered a consummate thought leader in the areas of digital marketing, agile marketing, content marketing, customer-driven experiences, brand building, and business development. He is also a sought-after speaker. He has presented at Adobe Summit, Enterprise World, Digital Entertainment World, just to name a few. And with that, I will turn it over to Matt now to officially get us started.
Great. Thank you very much, Selma, and thank you, everyone, for taking time to join us today. For those of you who've been on one of our webinars before, you've probably noticed that I always start off by saying how excited I am about the guests that we have today on the webinar. And that's because we have truly had some amazing experts come on the last year that have shared their experience and wisdom with us. And today's no exception. For anyone who's done any kind of research on buyer personas, then you will have no doubt come across Adele's work. She literally wrote the book on buyer personas. It's actually called Buyer Personas. And you may have seen her speak at events like Content Marketing World or listen to a podcast. And she's really one of the world's go-to people for knowledge about personas. So I'm super excited to have her on today. And the reason that we started doing these webinars is that we recognize that marketers really have a tough gig. I talk to marketers almost every day, whether it's our customers or prospects or partners, and the overwhelming feedback is that our jobs are getting harder and harder. And there's some reasons for that. Our ability to influence our buyer is getting more difficult. The cost of marketing is going up. I know in our industry, as a SaaS business, that industry has seen our customer acquisition costs go up 65% in the last 5 years. Information is cheap, free, attention is very expensive. And so we're spending a lot of our budgets, up to 45%, creating content, and we're spending almost as much as the CIO, if not more, on technology, and yet only 10% of us are happy with the results. So our software helps content marketers specifically, and so we like to bring experts on that help in the area of content marketing. We have a SaaS software that provides marketing a place to document the content marketing strategy, collaborate on the production and distribution of that content, and then measure the results. And so we help with the process of producing and measuring content, but ultimately you still need human beings to create great content. So when Adele and I were preparing for this, we both kind of talked about content and kind of agreed that it's really about the content of the content. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And it reminded me of this interesting experiment that Unbounce. It's a great company here in Vancouver that puts on a conversion optimization conference every year. And last year, they were rolling out some early AI that they were working on, and they wanted to measure how well a computer could perform against a human being and predicting how well a landing page would convert. And 437 people participated. And it was really simple. They just showed a landing page, and you had to decide whether that landing page performed better or worse than the average. And the humans, and these are marketers. These aren't just people off the street. These are marketers. 50 really got it right half the time, so no better than a coin toss. The top humans, who they described as the people that were at the conference presenting on these topics, got it right 57% of the time, and the AI got it right 80% of the time. And so I'm not here to pitch AI or anything like that, but what was interesting is when they explained the algorithm, which is obviously very complicated, but when they explained the algorithm of what the machine used, it was actually just looking at the content itself. So it wasn't swayed by colors and design and format and all these other things that would sway a human towards their bias. It was just looking at the content, and it performed better. So I just thought that was actually a really good example of how the content really matters. So then, of course, this meme has been overused a lot, but I thought it was actually quite perfect for what we're talking about today. How do you create valuable content? That's the million-dollar question, and that's what we're going to answer today. And really, it is not simply about writing content. The secret lies in knowing who we're selling to, which is the persona, what they go through along the way to buy our product, which is the journey, and then the information they need in that moment. And if you don't have that information, we really don't have any other choice but to make stuff up or write about what we want to talk about. This new award we won, or this new product we're putting out, this new person we hired. And I'm not saying you don't have to put that information out there, but it's probably not the most burning questions that your buyer has. So one of my favorite lines is from the opening of Adele's book, which says, "This book is dedicated to every marketer who questions the wisdom of making stuff up." So, Adele is, like I said, one of the top thought leaders in the world on this. I've seen her speak a number of times. I've worked with her in a previous life. She consults with some of the biggest, best companies in the world and has done this hundreds and hundreds of times. And so I'm going to stop talking now and turn it over to the guru of personas, Adele.
Well, thank you, Matt. What an introduction. Wow. And thank you, everyone, for being here. When Matt called me to speak today, I said, "Are you kidding? This is my favorite topic. I will always show up anywhere that someone wants to hear about how we really build content, how we do marketing that is useful to buyers, because this is just not explored enough." And so I'm going to kick this off today by having you all go into the mode of thinking about a time when you were the buyer. Because you may have never been a buyer if you're a B2B marketer, or if you've just never bought something like your company is selling and marketing. You have been a buyer, and I'm going to dare say that within the last couple of years you've either purchased a house or bought a car or planned a big vacation or looked at where you're going to send your kids to school or go to college. I want you to think in your own minds about some time when you've been the buyer where you spent a good deal of time investigating your options, trying to learn about all the choices, and really become informed enough to make a decision. So I can see there's a whole bunch of people in the meeting room today. I want you to kind of visualize that. I can't see your faces, but I'm going to trust that you've got something like that in your mind. Maybe you were redecorating your house, remodeling the kitchen, even buying a new washer dryer. It's kind of a big deal, right? You don't want to make a mistake. And then eventually there's this moment in time when you say, aha, eureka, I have found the answer. I have actually got something that's the right fit for my needs. And fundamentally, that eureka moment is what we're trying to create for buyers. And I think this sometimes gets lost. This whole sort of connection to our own buying experience gets lost when we're sitting in front of a computer screen and we're trying to create some content, or we're trying to design a video or do anything that's going to help market our products. And it's hard to keep that attention on that buying experience. And yet that's what we're trying to help with. We're trying to get buyers all the way from that first moment when they say, hey, I think I might actually need to go on. I love to do cool vacations because what a great thing to think about. And, when I'm in front of a big conference room, I'll say to people, like, who's gone on a cool vacation and planned something really neat? And it's pretty easy to see that for those people, as they went through that decision, it was all about gathering useful information, and at the end of the day, that eureka moment was almost never starting with price or anything that was very, very feature specific. It was a whole experience that this was the company that was going to meet their needs. This was the vacation of their dreams. This was going to be like a great place to live, whatever. And, of course, we do a lot of work with B2B companies. So, believe it or not, in tech, in B2B tech where most of our clients exist, for these buyers, they're trying to find that eureka moment. And incredibly, despite what you might have heard, price, while a factor, is never the leading reason that people make a choice. So I want you to spend a few minutes now thinking about your own buyers and their buying experience. And I want you to ask, first of all, answer in your own minds the question of, are your buyers out there doing a lot of research to make a decision? Are they spending mere seconds? If anybody on the line today is in CPG, then that's sort of the easy answer where it's really short. This is what we call a low consideration buyer's journey, buying experience. I walk into the grocery store. I'm going to go to the grocery store later today probably, and I'll pick up the same carton of milk, same bread as I buy every week. Hey, who knows? I might see something that I pick up that I've never bought before. But if I make a mistake, if I don't like what I purchased, no biggie, give it away, throw it away, somebody will eat it, whatever. It's just over. On the other hand, if I'm making a big decision, like if I am buying something, if I am figuring out where to send my kids to college, or if I'm investing in a new marketing automation platform, a new content platform, if I'm a buyer that's investing in a new ERP solution, even in the SaaS world where so much software is subscription-based, buyers are spending weeks, months, or even years evaluating their options. And at the end of the day, they're going to choose the provider they trust. And I think that as marketers, we're really thinking about this whole persona conversation, which I'm going to spend some detail on here. We've got to realize that we need to know enough about our buyer persona to figure out what we can do in a marketing world to win their trust. Because in the old days, and I've been around long enough to remember the old days before the Internet, salespeople were entirely responsible for going out and winning that trust. And now here we are in an age where the buyers are only going to consider companies and even have a conversation with salespeople where marketing has done the job of earning their trust. And so how do we do that? As marketers, how do we build trust with buyers? And the fundamental answer is about answers. It's about understanding our buyers' questions. It's about understanding what they're going through as they do that lengthy search. And as they go through each step in that search, what are the questions they're asking? Are they worried about price? Sure, it's a factor, but it's probably way down on their list because we've done thousands of interviews with buyers of what we call high consideration buying decisions. Not the kind of stuff we learned about in college. So those of you that went to school and took marketing courses or have a degree in marketing, you learned about the 4 Ps, product, price, place, promotion. That's perfect if you're marketing consumer products, very low consideration products. But if you're marketing anything where buyers are spending time, there's a lot of questions buyers have. And we've got to understand their questions, and then we've got to answer those questions in a way where that answer looks authentic, it looks real, it's helpful, it's useful, it's not trying to conceal anything or be somehow secretive or in a way that erodes that trust. And so as we think about buyer personas, one of the biggest questions every marketer has is how many personas do I need? And so I'm going to give you some examples right off. And I want to just think about, this is an example of a study that we did with for a company that markets senior living communities. So these are places where, you put your mom or your dad when they're getting older, and they can have a nice lifestyle and get assistance maybe as they age and need care. And so in this study, it would be pretty obvious to say, well, there's two personas. There's the actual senior who's going to live in this community, and then there's her adult daughter. And by the way, it usually is a daughter, although sometimes it's a son or other family member or even a friend. But generally there's somebody younger helping the senior make this choice. And so we said, well, hey, listen, this might be two personas. But when we went out and interviewed them to understand their experience, their journey, their questions along the way, and what it would take to have them trust that this senior living community was going to be ideal for them, we found that their questions were almost all the same. I just want to let that sink in for a minute, and I'm going to give you a different example for B2B in a minute, that the answer to how many personas we need should be how many different ways do we need to answer the buyer's questions in order to have them trust us. It shouldn't be, is there a difference in their age or their gender, or if we're B2B, are they in a different size company or different geography or different industry? If fundamentally marketing's job is to build trust, and we do that by answering questions, then we can look at their questions and we can see if the same questions are being asked and if the same answers will satisfy them. Let's look at another example. This was a study that I talk about in my book. This was for Caterpillar. So this is, the company that makes these big yellow tractors. And when they came to us, they said, well, we have 5 different industries where we go to market. And they had 2 different types of construction industry, plus they had landscaping, snow removal, and agriculture. And they thought they had 5 personas. 3 fit nicely on this slide, but frankly, they thought they had 5. And so we went out and did interviews with people in each of those sectors to see what differences they had in their buying experience and what would earn their trust with the Caterpillar and not John Deere or Kubota or any of those other guys. Case is a competitor. None of those guys were a better answer for that buyer. And what we discovered is that while companies wanted to see, pictures of snow removal if they were snow removal guys, and construction sites if they were construction guys, the fundamental difference in what was going to earn their trust and have them choose Caterpillar over the competitors had nothing to do with industry. In fact, we found out they didn't have 5 personas, they had 2, and the differences were defined based on one buyer being fundamentally very knowledgeable about what equipment he thought he needed and wanting to see side-by-side comparisons with all of these tables, with all the, does it have foot controls or hand controls, isn't it climate controlled, and how much weight can I lift with this thing? And he wanted to go in and just go to a website and see all that and be able to make a choice. On the other hand, there was a different buyer who wasn't educated about what he needed to buy. And this guy, let's say he was in the landscaping business, and he got an opportunity to start building swimming pools. And he even had a customer who was interested in a proposal tomorrow. And he wants to get on the phone with a sales rep, with a knowledgeable rep who's going to help him understand what kind of equipment he'd need to buy in order to get into the swimming pool business. And this guy's needs weren't being satisfied because Caterpillar was selling to this market through the channel. Channel partners didn't call him back for a couple of days. The guy that needed all the detail, his counterpart who wanted all the side-by-side feature data, that wasn't available anywhere. They had 2 different personas who had 2 very different expectations around their buying experience. Had nothing to do with industry, and they weren't serving either of them, and neither were their competitors. And so this became a huge competitive advantage for them. So let's talk about this. How do we figure this out? How do we know this? How do you, as a marketer, know your persona? How do you know what questions your buyers are asking. And there's a very specialized kind of research that you need to do in order to get those, to find that out. And so I'm going to give you a brief overview here today. And I'm not here to sell books, you guys. Wiley makes all the money. My publisher makes all the money off my books. I get like 80 cents a book. So this isn't trying to pitch books today. But if you're interested in this, if this appeals to you, I want you to go buy the book, and I'll get my extra 80 cents, and you'll find out how to do these interviews in a lot more detail than I can share in this webinar. So the first thing you need to know about these interviews is that they're completely unscripted. In fact, the question you see on your slide right now, take me back to the day when you first started looking for a place for Mom, or when you first started, to move when she's older, or when you first started looking for a new skid steer tractor, and tell me what happened. And what that does is it gets the buyer back to the very beginning of their journey, the very first day of their experience, and we get to find out with a lot of probing what really happened to trigger that investment, to get them started. And then we walk them very slowly and gradually through every step of their decision. Where did they go to get information? What did you learn there? What did you hope to learn there? What was hard to learn there? And how many did you get? Okay, you got 6 or 7 different choices. Now what did you do? What did you do to narrow that field further? And you just gradually and in a very conversational way. And what's hard is when marketers think of research, they usually think of surveys, or they think of a very scripted dialogue, but this is unscripted, and here's why. When you ask buyers any question, when you ask anyone a question on a survey or with any kind of a script, they're going to give you a really obvious answer. Oh, why, take me back to the day when you needed a marketing automation solution. Well, I needed something that was going to let me, be able to measure the results of my marketing and make sure I can get to the different content to all the different personas and track things and plan campaigns more efficiently. And frankly, while true, this is not an insight. It doesn't allow me to figure out what exactly about those things matters to the buyers with respect to achieving that result so that I can understand in detail their questions and what I'm going to do to understand how to deliver marketing, sales enablement, content, everything around to answer those questions. So this next slide is a bit of an eye chart, and it's meant to be because when we do studies, when you do these interviews with your buyers, you're going to find out that at each stage in this, your buyers have a long list of questions. Now, I can't ever share the real questions that real buyers ask because that is so proprietary for our clients. But what I've done here is I've just taken a bunch of different studies and kind of mishmashed all of them together. So you'll get an idea of how many questions your buyers are asking in each of these stages, and just give you a sense of the fact that, in the old days when salespeople could go out and call on the buyers and find out what their questions were and deliver answers and already build that trusted rapport by doing that, those days have ended. And now it's imperative, it's so critical that marketing understand these questions and that we're not just sitting around in a room making up our content, making up our messages based on what we want to talk about. That we have to understand the buyer's questions, and then we have to make it really easy for them to find the answers. And so the other thing we learn in those interviews is honest and true. What are buyers, where are they going? What kind of content are they consuming? What do they want to see in order to get the answers? I've sat in 100 meetings, I'm sure you guys had, and discussed, do we need more video? Do we need more focus on this capability? Do we need to be more on social media? Do we need to be at conferences more or less? All of those decisions are much easier when we have, in the buyer's own words, exactly where they're going and what they trust in terms of their content. And so again, this is just an example. It's made up on purpose so you guys, I'm not telling you this is the answer for your buyer persona. I'm telling you, you need to know this answer. That before you sit down and do your marketing planning, that you can defend your decisions about how you're marketing your solution based on where your buyers are going, and that you can now justify the investments that you need to make to be where your buyers are looking for this information. So the cool part is, once we understand the buyer's questions and where they are looking for that information, where we need to deliver those answers, we can now sit with our subject matter experts and build content, build messages that buyers are just absolutely thrilled to death to get, that create those eureka moments for them. And so how do we do that? So this simple Venn diagram shows over here that on the left we have, from those slides I just showed you, all the buyer's questions. And now we can sit with subject matter experts, people who know our product and our competitors really well and know our capabilities. And for every single question the buyer is asking, we can identify the intersection. We can identify the place where what the buyer cares about most, and we've got data to prove this. We aren't making this stuff up, and we're not just asking our salespeople who, by the way, according to Gartner, a Gartner study, salespeople are engaged, and so is marketing. And in other words, buyers are engaged with sales and marketing at the vendor organization for less than 38% of the time of their journey, of their whole experience. So if we ask our salespeople what questions the buyers are asking, we're going to get the questions for that 38% of the journey, and we're also going to understand the questions only for the buyers that salespeople engaged with and remember. When we go out and ask the buyers themselves, we start with that very beginning day of their journey, and we understand their questions and the answers they hope to hear throughout their journey. And we know them for a market full of buyers, not just the people who actually were engaged with our company. So this intersection between the buyer's questions and our capabilities are what we call the high ROI marketing wedges. These are the core messages that we're going to use to get a meeting with buyers, get buyers to even open that first piece of content, open that first email, answer that first phone call, stop at our booth at the conference, attend our event, because we understand where we have like a wedge to get into their wall of resistance and get them to engage with us. So let me just show you a quick example. So this is from the example buyer persona that you guys are going to get after this session. Mintent's going to be sending you a PDF of an example buyer persona from our website. By the way, remember, this is just a made-up persona. We can't give you real personas. But you're going to see this question. It was for an email marketing solution, this example. And in this example, the customer, the marketer, was saying, hey, listen, I don't want to change email marketing platforms because when my customer opts in, I want them to instantly get the attachment that was a CTA, the call to action. I don't want to have to get an opt-in email and a second email in order to get what they want. I want them to get instant gratification. So once this fictional email marketing company knows that that's the buyer's question, now you can see how a high-value wedge would be that we don't require that you can send that attachment with the first email your customer receives when they first opt in. You don't have to put them through some kind of serial email strategy and before you get to the point where they actually deliver what you need. And so this is fundamentally the idea, is the way to build trust with our personas, the way to figure out how to engage in our marketing and have high ROI, that was hard to say fast, is to understand the buyer's question and understand what answer is going to build trust with them. And, when I was working with Matt and Megan before this conference, before this webinar, and I said, what do you think your audience really wants to hear? They were talking about how critical it is. I get questions all the time about how many buyer personas do we need. And so I just thought I'd come back to one other example, and this is a company that is a very large, one of the largest technology companies in the world. And they have we'll just call it a cloud software solution. And we went out to do interviews with them in the U.S., the UK, and Germany across 8 industries to understand, in order for them to be effective marketing this particular solution, how many personas did they need and what did they need to do in order to engage those buyers. And so let's see. Let's do the math here. If we've got 3 geographies, that might be 3 different personas. And then we've got 8 industries in each. Now we've got, let's see, 3 times 8, 24 potentially different personas. And now we could even go really crazy and say, yeah, and there's different influencers in the buying committee over this technology. And pretty soon, and without any trouble at all, we're up to a completely unmanageable number of personas that we somehow have to market to in order to win their business and build their trust. Here's what I want to tell you about this study. When we went through this entire process, not only interviewing the buyers, but also doing that workshop and figuring out where the intersection was, where those high-value marketing wedges were, this company ended up with 1 persona and 1 set of wedges, 1 set of content that they needed to build to be effective and be able to start to build that trust across all of those markets. Now, it's not that they don't have other personas when they're marketing against other problems, but for this particular solution category, they only needed 1. We've had other studies where even in a single industry, there were 2 personas. So the point of it is we cannot look at demographics. We can't look at gender, age, salary level for B2C. We can't look at industry, company size, or geography, or even job title or role, and know how many personas we need. To answer that question, we need to go understand the buyer's questions and what we need to do to answer them. So I want to talk for a minute now about the next most critical topic I get, which is once I have these personas, Adele, how does it make a difference? How does this really help me be a more effective marketer? And I'll tell you, this keeps me awake at night. It really does, because I am so concerned that marketers are really missing out not only by not getting enough information about their persona, not getting the right information and having too many of them to ever market to them, but also that once they have this information, they don't know what to do with it. And so I just want to spend a few minutes before we take your questions, and I appreciate you entering questions into the question box, because in a few minutes I really do want to stop talking and answer your questions. But I first want to tell you that personas are meant to be a tool. They are not in and of themselves the end game. Personas don't have any value until you use them to make better decisions. And so I am trying to get marketers to realize that the way we're going to change the role of marketing, the way we're going to have marketing live up to its expectations. So, Matt, thank you for starting off talking about how marketing is a tough gig. Part of what makes marketing such a tough gig is everybody's got an opinion about marketing. I think we're the only department in the entire company where everyone in the company feels fully entitled to have opinions and make decisions, right? And just think about a time when you've been in a meeting and you were trying to make any kind of a decision about marketing, and I don't care what it is. You guys sit in these meetings all day, whether it's what are we going to write, what are we going to say, how are we going to deliver that, what results should we achieve, should we do this, should we do that. How many people in that room, including perhaps yourself, are starting sentences with something like, well, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that. And sometimes we end up with what I call marketing by HIPPO. Did you guys know HIPPO is an acronym? So HIPPO, right? It stands for Highly Paid Person's Opinion. HIPPO, right? Got that? HIPPO. So because frankly, after a few hours in a meeting like that, I'll just give up. I'll just okay, whatever. I just got to get out of this meeting room. I don't care. We've got to move forward. So sure, we'll decide to market our flexible, scalable, compatible, enterprise-wide, fully integrated solution for awesome business results, and that's our message, right? Now, If you guys haven't ever been on the phone with a buyer who's trying to consume that kind of information to make an informed buying decision, you got to do that. You got to do that for your own sake, because it's going to change your attitude as a marketer forever. Because buyers are absolutely sticking their fingers down their throat when we send them stuff like this. You know, it's just all this benefit stuff. It all sounds alike. I've literally had buyers say to me, Adele, if I put I didn't spend any time on their website, because except for the logo, they all said the same thing. They all looked alike. There was nothing valuable for me there. No, I didn't look at the marketing they sent me, because it all said the same thing. And so how do we stop this madness, you guys? And it starts with going to every single meeting with that persona in hand and saying, and watching, catching ourselves saying, I think we should anything, and stopping with, we've been interviewing buyers and what they want is. And this changes the whole conversation when instead of being marketing, whose opinion frankly often doesn't rise to the top in those kind of meetings, now we're marketing who is representing the buyer's perspective. I'll tell you a quick story about Amazon. Some of you may know about the empty chair at Amazon. So Jeff Bezos, when he founded Amazon, it made sure that at critical meeting there was an empty chair at the table. So all the executives around plus an empty chair, and the empty chair was meant to remind the executives that they needed to have the customer have a seat at that table. The customer's voice needed to be given consideration. And so for years that's what they did, only now that chair is no longer empty. Now there is a customer expert sitting in that chair at Amazon. And I've never worked at Amazon. We don't do work for Amazon. I'm not telling you I've done this, but you'll find if you go out and do Google empty chair, not right this second, you guys stay with me for a few more minutes. But if you make a note to go out and find out about empty chair Jeff Bezos, you'll find stories where he's recounting how today, when that customer experience person frowns in those meetings, all the senior vice presidents, all these highly paid, all these hippos in the room go, oops, we can't do that. And so this is the purpose of personas, you guys. It's not cardboard cutouts. It's not posters. It's not pretty pictures with a name and all that stuff. It's really changing our whole conversation about how we make decisions and giving that buyer's experience some weight. And so if we do this, imagine the time when sales and marketing were truly aligned and in complete agreement and alignment around who the buyer is, why they want to engage with us, what are the things we can talk about that actually affect buying decisions. What if we came to every meeting together between sales and marketing, understanding what positives we could emphasize to build trust with buyers, what objections, what barriers buyers encounter as they go through, and what if we were fully committed as a team working together in our very different ways, sales and marketing, sales to influence one buyer at a time, marketing to influence a market full of buyers, that we're the company they can trust. And this is the kind of experience that buyers are pleading for, frankly. What if we could build our strategic plans with clout, I call it. I don't know about you guys, but writing a marketing plan is the worst job on the planet, because we write this plan, it takes a lot of time, feels like I'm not making any progress really. I write it all down, and so frequently we don't get to really execute that plan. And that's because we're starting with our goals. We're starting with what we want. And if next week, next quarter, sometime during the year, during the plan period, somebody comes in and says, but we want something else, or we think something else, then the whole plan's out the door. If, on the other hand, we start our plans with what the buyers want, you guys trust me, what the buyers want doesn't change that often. And you can actually write plans grounded in what the buyers want, and they'll persist and they'll have teeth. They won't be subject to all the changes that occur when it's just internal opinion saying, I think. It's what does the buyer want. So as we start to wrap up, and I'm looking for some questions here, I want you to think back about what did you learn today? Because this webinar is a lot like the persona, right? If all I did was give you some ideas today and you don't immediately have a plan to go do something different, then by Monday you will have forgotten all of this. So in addition to any questions, I'm happy to take questions about buyer personas. I want you to be thinking about and maybe even asking questions about, any challenge you see. What will prevent you from doing this? And thinking about what you can do right away to make this work. And so I'm just going to pop my book up here so you guys know that you can go find that at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. So Matt mentioned this quote, the book is dedicated to every marketer who questions the wisdom of making stuff up. And if that's you, then I hope we've given you the beginnings of some idea of how to get out of that mode. So Matt, I'm going to go back to you and see if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So while we're here on this screen here, we are going to give away 3 copies of your book. So that's, $2.40 in your pocket.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. So we're going to buy physical hard copies. So Megan's randomly generated these names from this name picker thing, and I'm not going to name the last names, but I'll call out your first names, and because there's only one person with each of these names on the call, and Megan will get in touch with you and send you your book. So hopefully you didn't go on Amazon and just buy it already. So the first winner is Valerie. The second winner is Sharon, and the third winner is a gentleman named Tim. Ed, so congratulations. It's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. So we always work with our clients on it's one of the things when you get them intent that we really encourage people to have done this work, understand the personas, the journeys, and then really put that at the epicenter as your team is collaborating around the types of content and the channels you're going to use and all that kind of stuff. If you do your personas, or you're in the process of, and you'd like to see what it's like to use a content marketing platform to execute on the content, we have a free trial on our website, and would be happy to hop on a WebEx with anyone and give you a demo. So I encourage anyone who wants to try that out to do so. And with that, I will turn it over to Selma. We've had some amazing questions come in, and we probably won't get to all of them, but we'll try. And if we don't, we will send out the answers individually. If you want to contact myself or Adele, there's our information there. So Selma, can you moderate the questions here for us?
Yes. Thank you so much. And I agree, these questions are fantastic. So I'll go ahead and get started. The first one that we have is from Ilan, if I pronounced that correctly. And this participant is curious where they can find the study that Adele mentioned in the beginning.
The study with senior living or Caterpillar or probably, so you don't know. So I'm going to say, so the Caterpillar story is described in my book. The senior living study is not written up. That occurred after I wrote the book. We don't have that written up, but there's lots of other stories in the book.
Yeah, and that question came in really early. It might have been the study I was talking about of the marketer versus machine as well, and that's just Google unbounce marketer versus machine, and they've got a blog post that. It was actually a live thing they did at their conference, and those are the results. But if you Google that, I'm not sure either. But if that's not what you were looking for, please just ask the question again with more specifics, and we'll try and track it down for you if it's available.
All right. Well, thank you so much to both of you. The next question is from Sherry, and the question is, are there any specific considerations for federal government defense buyers?
Such a good question. Yeah, well, it's the same thing. You've got to interview them. We've just recently finished a big DoD study, and the federal government. And and I cannot share what we learned from that, because our clients, if you think about this, understanding your buyer's questions is a real competitive advantage, right? The interview methodology is exactly the same, though, and so it's really about you getting those people on the phone and getting them to walk you through very, very gradually and without a script their buying experience and finding out what matters to them. And frankly, that approach to doing the interviews, it doesn't matter whether you're interviewing Amy Influencer about where she's going to put her mom in a home, or the DoD, IT or security guy around, how are they going to invest in this particular kind of hybrid cloud or on-prem solution and secure it. All of those, it's still the same interview methodology.
All right, thank you so much, Adele. We have Matt here who comments, you say the demographic information, so age, gender, etc., doesn't matter, but doesn't that help inform how to reach them? For example, where to provide them with the answers they're looking for?
Yeah, very good question, Matt. Very good. So yes, for targeting, marketers often want to do traditional segmentation. What you want to do in that circumstance is you want to do, and I'll use that senior living example, is you want to go interview both types of buyers, figure out if their questions are different, and then if they're the same, it's really you're still going to use that demographic information for your targeting for efforts. It's just that you're going to find out that you don't need differentiated content, or that you need far less differentiated content than you thought you did by audience, by different persona. But yeah, we absolutely are still going to use demographics for traditional segmentation and targeting.
All right, great. We have Thomas here, and he's wondering if you could talk about how you might measure trust along the customer journey. So how do you know that you're building it up? It's a great question.
Yeah. Boy, I'll tell you what, if you figure that out, who asked, what was the name? Somebody to answer that?
It was Thomas.
Thomas, if you figure that out, would you please send me an email, Adele@buyerpersona.com. Feel free to email me any time of the day or night. I want that answer. Yeah, measuring marketing is just sucks, doesn't it? I really wish we had great answers about things like that. For me, what we have to still do is measure the things we're already measuring, conversion, and appreciate the fact, and you're going to get it through the interviews. It's just going to come through so loud and clear that the buyers are going to say things about trust when they make decisions. And it's pretty easy to conclude at the end, because they're going to tell you this, that we chose the company we trusted. We chose the company that we believed was going to be there in the long run, or that was going to partner with us, or that was going to deliver some kind of functionality we needed, or that was going to, give us a great experience once we got to Costa Rica for our vacation. So, but can we actually measure that and the progress of that through the journey? If you figure that out, just absolutely call me anytime.
Yeah, it's Matt here as well. It's obviously a very important question, and one that all marketers struggle with. I think, as we move into this economy where trust is kind of the new currency, I think ultimately, your results as a business are going to be the way you measure it, but obviously that's lagging. I think that, we're seeing more and more where you need to get the permission from people to market to them. I know, in Canada and in Europe, there's lots of laws preventing just sort of spamming people without their permission. So as people trust you more, then they give you permission to market to them and to, engage in a two-way dialogue. And I think that's some way to kind of measure whether you're building trust, is whether people are sort of opting in and into your programs and signing up and giving you their real information and stuff. And certainly once they become a customer post, purchase, that journey still continues with customer experience and all that. Then how people engage in your surveys and your NPS, surveys and things like that. So there's some things you can do, but it's not certainly scientific yet.
Thank you to you both. We have Lucy here who is curious if she can start with creating the personas with sales, if they need to get started and evolve as they learn more in her company. So can she start with sales?
Yeah, good question, Lucy. And most marketers do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would just caution you that you've got a very, very limited view of your persona until you go on out and talk to buyers directly. So, feel free to start there. Salespeople are not patterns and trends people. They remember the guy they had lunch with yesterday. By the way, I was in sales, so I can pick on salespeople, and I totally get it. But they're really paid just to look at one account at a time. So you're going to get a limited view, but there's nothing wrong with starting it. Just please don't stop there.
All right, fantastic. And we have actually a couple people that are asking about the process of, interviewing buyers. We have Sherry and Jamie and Daniel. And so the question relates to, the process. So you talk about interviewing customers. Is this with every customer interaction or defined project? If you can kind of give us some more clarity.
Yeah, so very good. And so no, you're not going to have to, good news, you don't have to interview that many people to begin to get a sense of the buying experience. In fact, once you get good at this, you'll find that after 6, 8, 10 interviews, you're going to start to really see patterns emerging around what the buying experience is and what you need to do to serve those buyers. And so be careful that when you use the term customer, because customers and buyers, we use all those words interchangeably, want to make sure you talk to people about their buying experience, about, take me back to the day when you first decided to evaluate this solution, and keep them focused on their buying experience. If you get customers on the phone, they often want to talk to you about their using experience. After I bought the product, this didn't work, that didn't work. I wish you'd change this. I wish you'd change that. That's okay. Customer personas are valuable, but they have an entirely different purpose. So just watch that you're talking to people and that you keep telling them we want to talk to you about what happened up to the day, when you purchased, and don't get sidetracked into conversations about the using experience or the customer experience, or at least treat that as a separate initiative. I recommend in my book that you do 6 to 8 interviews, begin to identify the patterns, and we give you, unlike a lot of business books, I wrote down everything I know about how to do this work, how to do the interviews, how to find the patterns, how do you build the personas. Because I'm a trainer at heart. I actually used to own a training company. I started this company as a training company. And so I really want you guys to have the tools to go do this yourselves. And so it's all written down in the book in a lot of detail how to do that. But 6 to 8 interviews to get started, and then highly recommend that you do at least 1 interview a month for the rest of your life, or at least until you leave that company, whichever comes first. Because it's really about constantly keeping the buyer in your mind and keeping that, so that when you go into that meeting and you say, we've been interviewing buyers, that it wasn't something you did, 3 years ago.
All right, wonderful. We only have a little bit of time left, Matt and Adele. So we have Patricia here, and her question is, in an industry like hospital care, each service line might have different personas. So what is your advice on how to handle this?
In any industry, there's always a question of, are there different personas? And so I'll try to bring that question up one level, just so that everybody in the call today hopefully benefits from this answer, which is, I want you to start not with a role per se or with a product that you sell them. I want you to start by thinking about what's a buying experience we want to influence. And so this is usually at the level of some set of products that you're going to sell. And now I want you to go, and I would give you a longer answer if we had more time. I'm going to give you the shortest one. I want you to go talk to the person who led the evaluation for that kind of solution. So in a high consideration sale, there's always a many decision makers, and it's okay to interview all of them. But I want you to the best bang for your buck is going to be out of interviewing the person who had responsibility for working with a team of people to go through that assessment and come back to the economic buyer with a recommendation on who we should do business with. So in that hospital, and we've done a lot of healthcare, you're going to try to find whoever would be leading that evaluation, and that's going to depend a lot on what you're marketing to them.
Yeah, and I'll just add, healthcare is one of our largest verticals, and if the question is about a hospital providing service, say, to patients, then there's absolutely a patient persona and a patient journey. It's not a buying journey, hopefully, but it kind of is, but it's a different sort of thing, but a lot of the same principles. And we've written some blog posts on that, and I did an interview with the marketing healthcare company on that, and that we can, Megan will send you that information as well. But the questions the person has might be very different according to the type of.
Oh, I see. And so this might be for the buyer of.
Well,
the buyer of the healthcare versus. Yeah, I took it the other way, right?
Yeah, no, it could be taken that way too, selling to healthcare, or it could be like healthcare, taking care of patients. So. Right. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we have information on that. We can send you for sure.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. But as Matt mentioned, I will be providing their team with your questions. So if we didn't have a chance to address your question, please note that you will receive communication with these answers. Also, please feel free to connect with Matt and Adele if you want to continue this conversation and take it offline. I'm sure they would welcome that. And I want to just remind everyone that this webcast will be available and archived on ama.org/webcast later on this afternoon. The Mintent team will also be sending follow-up communication, and this will include the recording, also a PDF example of a buyer persona, and again, Megan from the Mintent team will be reaching out to those 3 lucky winners to get their information and send them their copy of Adele's book. So please look out for that. I want to thank Adele and Matt again. Thank you so much for your time and this fantastic presentation. I also want to thank ReadyTalk for allowing us to use their platform for our webcast today. And, of course, thank you so much to our audience. Thank you for your time, your participation, all of these wonderful and thoughtful questions. We will have a short survey at the end of this presentation, so if you'd like to share your feedback about today's presentation, we would greatly appreciate it. And I wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thank you so much again.
Great. Thank you.